Hash artifact. Story blind date mud. The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days, and Marcus Bennett was already regretting this entire blind date idea. His daughter Emma had practically begged him to, "Just try, Dad," holding up his phone with the dating app open like it was a life preserver. At 42, he'd been a widower for 5 years, and the thought of sitting across from a stranger, making small talk over overpriced pasta, made his chest tight. But Emma's hopeful eyes had won, as they always did. So here he was, standing outside Francesca's Italian restaurant, checking his watch for the 3rd time. Rachel was 15 minutes late. When a mud-splattered figure came rushing around the corner, Marcus's first instinct was to step back. The woman was covered, and he meant covered, in thick, dark mud from her knees to her hair. Her dress, which might have once been cream-colored, was destroyed. Mascara streaked down her cheeks, and she was limping slightly, one heel missing from her shoe. She stopped right in front of him, breathless and wild-eyed. "Marcus," she gasped. He stared. This couldn't be Rachel. The photos had shown a put-together marketing executive with a bright smile, not someone who looked like she'd just wrestled an alligator in a swamp. Yes," he managed. "I'm so sorry. I know how this looks. I know you probably want to run, and I wouldn't blame you, but please," she held up a muddy hand, then quickly dropped it. "Just let me explain. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." Marcus glanced back at his car. Emma's voice echoed in his head. "Dad, you always give up too fast." He sighed. 5 minutes. Rachel's shoulders sagged with relief. "Thank you. Okay." She took a shaky breath. "I was driving here, running a little late because my sister called with an emergency, which turned out to be that she couldn't find her cat, but that's another story, and I saw this car flipped over in the ditch on Route 7. It must have just happened because there was steam coming from the hood, and I didn't see anyone else stopping." Marcus's attention sharpened. Route 7 was notorious for accidents, especially in this weather. There was a woman inside, trapped. She was conscious but panicking, and there was a baby in a car seat in the back, screaming. Rachel's voice cracked. "I pulled over and climbed down into the ditch. The mud was so deep, Marcus. I kept sinking, but I couldn't just drive by. What if no one else stopped? What if I was the only chance they had?" He noticed now that her hands were shaking, and not just from the cold. The woman's leg was pinned, and the baby, God, the baby couldn't have been more than 6 months old. "I got the back door open and unbuckled the car seat. I had to carry that baby up through the mud while calling 911. Then I went back for the mother. She was crying, begging me to make sure her baby was okay. Another driver finally stopped and helped me keep her calm until the ambulance arrived." Rachel wiped her eyes, smearing more mud across her face. "The paramedics said I did the right thing, that the woman would be fine, and the baby didn't have a scratch. But by then, I looked like this, and I was already half an hour late. I thought about canceling, but my phone died, and I drove straight here because I didn't want you to think I'd stood you up." Marcus felt something shift in his chest. He thought about Emma, about how he'd do anything for her. He thought about the kind of person who would ruin a first date, ruin a probably expensive dress and risk their own safety, for complete strangers. "You saved them," he said quietly. "I just did what anyone would do." "No." He shook his head. "Most people would have driven past. Maybe they'd call 911, but they wouldn't climb down into that ditch. They wouldn't risk it." Rachel looked down at her ruined outfit and laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. "Well, look where doing the right thing got me. I'm sure this is the worst first impression in the history of first dates. We can just reschedule, or honestly, I'd completely understand if you wanted to forget this whole thing." Marcus surprised himself by smiling. "You must be freezing. Come on." "What?" He gestured to the restaurant. "You think I'm going to let you leave after you told me that story? Besides, my daughter would kill me if I walked away from someone who literally saved a baby tonight." Rachel blinked. "But I'm covered in mud. They're not going to let me in there. Then we'll go somewhere else." Marcus pulled out his phone. "There's a diner 2 blocks from here. They've seen worse than mud, trust me. Best burgers in town, and they have the heat cranked so high you'll thaw out in minutes." "You're serious?" "Rachel, in the last 5 years, I've been on exactly 3 dates. All of them were disasters, boring, awkward disasters where we both watched the clock. You just told me the most incredible story I've heard in years. You're interesting, you're brave, and yeah, you're covered in mud, but I'd rather have dinner with someone real than someone perfect any day. For the first time since she'd arrived, Rachel's expression softened into something like wonder. You have a daughter, Emma. She's 12. She's the one who talked me into this whole dating thing. She sounds like a smart kid. She is. Probably too smart for her own good. He offered his arm, then thought better of it given the mud situation. Come on. Let's get you somewhere warm. They walked the 2 blocks to Murphy's diner, Rachel squelching with every step, Marcus trying not to laugh at the looks they got from passing cars. When they pushed through the door, the waitress, a woman named Dolores who'd worked there for 30 years, took one look at Rachel and said, "Honey, rough day." "You could say that," Rachel replied. "Bathrooms in the back. There's paper towels and hand soap. Won't make you pretty, but it'll help." 20 minutes later, Rachel emerged with most of the mud washed off her face and arms, her hair pulled back in a damp knot. The dress was still ruined, but Dolores had loaned her an oversized Murphy's Diner sweatshirt. She slid into the booth across from Marcus, and for a moment, they just looked at each other. Then they both started laughing. "This is insane," Rachel said. "Completely," Marcus agreed. They ordered burgers and fries and coffee, and somewhere between the appetizers and the main course, Marcus realized he was having the best first date of his life. Rachel was funny and self-deprecating and asked him real questions about Emma, about his work as a carpenter, about what it had been like raising a daughter alone. She didn't treat his late wife like a subject to avoid. She listened when he talked about Sarah, about the grief and the healing and the way Emma had her mother's laugh. In return, he learned that Rachel volunteered at an animal shelter on weekends, that she'd once backpacked through South America alone, that she was terrified of disappointing people but trying to get better at setting boundaries. She was the middle of 5 siblings, all of whom called her constantly for advice. She loved old movies and hated cooking and dreamed of starting her own consulting business someday. "You're going to do it," Marcus said. "Start that business. How do you know?" "Because you're the kind of person who climbs into ditches to save people. You don't back down from hard things." Rachel's eyes grew bright. "That might be the nicest thing anyone's said to me in years." When the check came, Marcus insisted on paying. They walked back to Rachel's car slowly, neither of them in a rush to end the evening. Her car was still mud-splattered, evidence of the rescue she'd barely thought twice about. "So," Rachel said, turning to face him, "would you want to do this again? Maybe next time without the mud." Marcus thought about Emma, waiting at home, probably still awake and dying to know how it went. He thought about the last 5 years of being cautious, of keeping people at arm's length, of convincing himself that the risk of getting hurt again wasn't worth it. Then he thought about Rachel, covered in mud, explaining why she'd been late instead of just disappearing. Rachel, who'd chosen a stranger's safety over making a good impression. Rachel, who'd shown him that sometimes the best things in life are the unexpected ones, the messy ones, the ones that don't go according to plan. "I'd really like that," he said. "Though I have to warn you, Emma's going to want to meet you. She's already decided you're a hero based on what little I texted her." Rachel smiled, the kind of smile that reached her eyes and made the whole night feel like fate instead of coincidence. "I'd love to meet her. Fair warning though, I'm much better with kids than I am at showing up clean to first dates." Marcus laughed, and it felt good, felt right, felt like maybe he was finally ready to let someone new into the life he'd built with his daughter. "Perfect. We could use someone who's good at handling chaos." As he watched Rachel drive away, her taillights disappearing into the rainy night, Marcus pulled out his phone. There was already a text from Emma. "Well, don't leave me hanging. Asterisk." He typed back, "Best first date ever. And yes, she's real. I'll tell you everything in the morning." Asterisk. 3 dots appeared immediately, then, "I knew it. Told you Dad. So proud of you." Asterisk. Marcus smiled and pocketed his phone. Tomorrow, he'd tell Emma the whole story, the mud, the rescue, the diner, everything. Tonight, he'd go home and fall asleep knowing that sometimes, the person who shows up imperfect and honest and covered in mud is exactly the person you've been waiting for all along.